Good morning, everybody. Hello, Brent. How are you doing this morning? All right. So this is going to be a morning of working on... We're going to do a new character today. We're going to work on Bennett, who is the character that... But I have forgotten where I put everything. It's getting complicated here because we're kind of... This is actually the most production that I have done in a very, very long time. So, it's actually really good. But it means that before, you used to be able to do this... pretty quickly, or I used to have lots of good time in between, of which to sort everything and put everything in the right folders and everything like that, but it's a good and a bad thing. I have been extraordinarily... Oh, good morning, Amanda. Welcome to the show. So we're going to work on a character design today, and that's what we're going to be doing for my comic. We've got... I actually haven't seen you around, so let me explain a little bit about the comic. I've got a comic that I'm going to start writing called Bellatrix Rising. And, I should put the logo because I can have the logo. There we go. So Bellatrix Rising is a science fiction, space opera sort of thing. I used to write a comic called Tamerlane, which was a Star Trek comic, and I realized I can't make any money off of my Star Trek comic. So what I did was I moved all of my Star Trek stories over into a new universe that I'm building all for myself and everything like that. But the story takes place and centered around a trio of people who are the command crew, the Kirk, Spock, and McCoy of this show, of the comic. So what I'm going to do here is we're going to work on the character design for the first officer. The first officer, I'm just going to move her straight over from Tamerlane almost directly. In Tamerlane, she had a lot of prosthetics. There was an accident, a space accident that occurred that damaged both of her arms and both of her legs and part of her brain. And so she lost an eye, she lost part of her brain was damaged, and she's got like artificial intelligence in her mind, and she has both arms and both legs were replaced, and her spine's been reinforced. So she's tall, and but part of this came from my captain is like 4'9" or 4'10" or something ridiculous, really, really tiny. And so I liked the idea of the captain being very short and very small and very petite, and the first officer being very big, mostly because Captain Chang can't fight at all. She's got zero fighting skill. That's not her bag. She's a tactician. So I'm looking through my character Bible here, which I wrote on all of the characters, because they all have new names for the story. I went on ahead and changed out everybody's names. So I kept, though, her first name, because she's Angelica Crane now instead of Angelica Bennett, which is fine. And that's really large. And in this instance, there really wasn't any major need to rename her. other than to indicate that this is not Tamerlane. And that's all. So that's a good question. That's actually a really good question. Everybody's computer is like 30 seconds behind. So you'll ask a question and I have to read it and then say something. So it's okay. Brent's like the old hand at that. He's gotten really good at the like asking questions and waiting thing, but it's all right. It's not your computer, it's Facebook. Facebook runs laggy. We don't know why. But so the answer really is that yes, the ultimate. I mean, I don't know if I would ever make an animation or a script or anything like that, but there's a lot of books that I'm planning because I had a ton of stories that were waiting in the wings for Tamerlane and never got published. So I'm going to put those out as part of this series. And I mean, what are you drawing up Andrew for his character? I'm not sure what you mean by that. Other than I did do Andrew's character. Well, that may be what I'm confused about. Are you talking about Andrew's character that we had drawn? Because if so, I did that one a long time ago. Oh, I get it now. I'm catching on. I'm almost as slow as this. Okay. So the answer to your question, Amanda, is that the battle plan here has been really just to make comics. I've got a ton of ideas and a ton of stories, and they were all designed for Star Trek, and I can't make any money off of Star Trek. I can't sell those in Artist Alley. I can't do any of that stuff. So this is all about just changing, because I loved my characters. When I started Tamerlane 100 zillion years ago, I literally started it in 2005. My thought was it was based off of, right, it's manga. It was based off of two concepts that we had, that I had come up with, which was a friend of mine had, oh yeah, that's right, Andrew is supposed to be a character. I think it's actually David that wants to be the, like, you and David were talking about being flight controllers and things like that in the city. Anyway, Amanda, to talk back to where we were going, because I'm now confused. When I started the Star Trek fan comic in 2005, it was a friend of mine had said, why is it always Enterprise? Why is it always Enterprise? What about Star Trek, the rest of the Federation? And so I started with the idea, and this was that idea came before Deep Space Nine and before Voyager and before Enterprise. So that one, this was like, I think it was 9th grade when he said that. You'll be the ATC guy, don't worry. Yeah, I find it hard not to be self-critical too. I suffer from that. So the concept was born where this was going to be one of those off in the corner starships that nobody ever hears about, a tug or a scout or, some little ship. And then I said, if you look at this, if you flip the gender of everybody on the original series, then you end up with all women and one man. And I said, boy, that looks really awkwardly strange. And I said, oh, that's an interesting statement to make about society. So I went on ahead and started doing up the story as the main three characters being female. So my Kirk and Spock and McCoy were women. And after all these years, they've become very interesting and varied characters. And so I wanted to keep those guys and move them over to Bellatrix Rising. So that's where we are on this story. I've kept them. The main character in this story now is effectively Julie Cochran, who was the main character in the first story. I've renamed her because I had to give her a different background, obviously. She can't be the great-great-great-granddaughter of Zefram Cochrane, which is Star Trek. I have to give her a completely different background now. So, in this story, Chang has grown up in... She grew up in a Chinese exclusionist place where a bunch of Chinese people moved to this planet and set up an exclusionist zone. So you could only be Chinese there, and that was it. And she got really aggravated and irritated with that and left her family behind. And so she's got a lot of stress between her and her sisters and brothers when she runs into them. Which I thought that's kind of cool. It gives me something else to work with the character. She's had one child, which died when the child was 8. So I've moved that directly over from Julie Cochran. Julie Cochran had one daughter, and the daughter died of a disease, and that was part of a story that was involved in the Tamerlane universe. And I'm just going to move that over because that was good. But one of the reasons that I wanted to move over to Bellatrix Rising was when I wrote Tamerlane, I didn't have kids. And so when I wrote Julie Cochran, as a parent who had lost a child, I didn't make her weird enough. I didn't make her crazy enough. I didn't make her orbit out of order. Now that I've got a kid, it's easier to look inside myself and say, what would I do? Where would I be if I lost my child? And the answer I get is a much more unstable me. So it's easier to impose that upon this version of Julie Cochran and make her a lot more unstable to begin with. So that's where I've moved. I'm using this opportunity to kind of reboot my characters a little bit, give them a little bit more grit, because I think she needs more grit. And Chang, we can bring her up here. Go back to me and Tamerlane. No. And Bellatrix Rising. Chang. We need the new character sheets. Apparently this takes forever. Chang looks like this, so let me go ahead and share that screen. Right? And actually, I don't know if I'd ever use that, but I like the idea that there's a voice actress around that I can use. So, okay, I absolutely would. Would there be an animation version of this? Probably, maybe. So yeah, Chang, Commander Chang is very short, very small. They did the little Chinese alcove, this environment forced them to stay. There's no genetic diversity. There wasn't a lot of genetic drift. So this is the main character. This is my captain, and she's in charge of the ship, the Kittiwake. And so there's her. Then we also have, if we go back, we just did Mayrel. Where did Mayrel go? Does anybody know where Mayrel went? No, nobody knows where Mayrel went. Okay, well, I'll figure it out. We also have Mayrel, who is we call her the point of view character, the vision character. So you see this character's point of view. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. So from that point of view, you've got sort of, where was I going with this? Meirel is what we call Deistati, which is a group of people who are effectively futuristic gypsies. They wander through space, and they live on these discarded old ships, and they don't interact much with the Unity or with the Confederacy, which are the two fighting cultures in this. So Meirel is like the POV character. We enter the story through her. So she's the one we're with at the very beginning of the story, and we stay with her through the story as sort of the point of view. Even though she's not the main character, she's sort of the one that we operate with. The third of the triumvirate. Oh, and Meirel's very she's very straight-laced. So she's also the straight man. So when Chang is being weird and bizarre, she's the one going, "What's wrong with you?" Which makes it kind of fun. So she's the straight man. She came from the engineer on Tamerlane, who was Brandy Ward. And Brandy Ward was the straight man entrance character for Tamerlane. The third of those is the one we're working on today. And that is Angie Crane, or Angelica Crane. And we're going to work on her today. That's what we're going to do. We give sort of a concept and an idea of what's going on here. So I'll share that screen over here. All right. So I'm going to bring up over here. Oh, I have character portraits as a folder. Where did I save Meirel's work? Oh, Meirel, I swear. She went somewhere. So, creating characters. I'm going to bring up some character sheets over here and just look at the design of some character sheets to kind of get an idea of where we're headed. And character study. This is where we really want to be. So, we talk about character design and character study. We want to figure out what the character looks like. Oh, I love the fact that there's some of this is action lines, talking about action lines. I have had horrible luck with action lines. It never goes over well. Right? And that's a problem. So you're like, what are you talking about, Guy? Here, let me show you. I have this thing about action lines. I've got a thing for action lines. Action lines. These are action lines, like talking about where the action of the character is moving and how the action moves through the character, right? So like through this zone here, or like this kind of giving this curve. Action lines assemble the picture together so that the picture all makes sense. People go against action lines and you end up going, where are all these people? What's going on? Who are you? Right? And that actually is something that I have recently learned from the magazine Imagine FX. So Amanda, tell me a little bit about the voiceover work you're doing. Are you redubbing anime? I mean, are you working on that, or is this is this new work? What's going on? What's the story? What's the story? I love stories. So I'm looking for character design. I actually really want to figure out hair. That's what I'm really after here is hair. Because my general operation of hair is not so good. Let's talk a little bit about hair. You get to go into the closet. Yay. Well, I'm glad you're with me. I'm glad you're joining me for today. I really am. This sounds like so much fun, though. Okay. We're going to go in here, and one of the things we're going to do first is change my pencil. Right? Because we want a pencil that can sketch, right? So, I want to talk a little bit about where we're going on this one. So let's first get ourselves a blue pencil. We're going to just talk about this character here. So I'm setting up some guidelines of where this character is going to be, right? We'll get back to this in a minute. Hang on. Once again, my monitor has accumulated all of the dust in the universe. So I need to de-dust my monitor. You're in the closet. I'm going to make so many closet jokes, it's just going to be funny. I'm just saying. So this is a front view right here. We'll make this into the front view. And this will be the side view. That way I can remember where we are. Then here is a 3/4. We'll have some kind of like screaming match or whatever. So we got to think about when we do these, we think about the character and what barking spiders. Barkley spiders. It's totally off topic. That's all right, Andrew. It's all good, man. When I first did Angie Crane, when she was Angie Bennett, the thing that I most got into was this. She has these like bangs. They're very Asuka-esque from Neon Genesis Evangelion. Her hair is kind of out like this. Right? So I kind of want her to have not sad eyes per se, but the other two girls have very almond-shaped eyes. And so I like her to not have almond-shaped eyes, because then it's not... She's got kind of a crooked smile and everything like that. And she's like the most normal, non-exotic of the three. Mayrel being very much a... she's Deisthades, so she's, like an Egyptian-esque is... She's got a lot of descendancy from Egypt as far as cultural goes. And so Mayrel is very very exotic looking with almond-shaped eyes. And then you have, of course, Chang being Chinese descendant. She has very almond-shaped eyes. So I really want to make sure that I have a character who's... I mean, I don't mean to imply that people who are just kind of middle of the road are not exotic. I'm sure they're very exotic. It's a thing. But it's part of the humor of this particular character that she is not... descript. We use that a lot, or she uses that to her advantage as a security officer and that kind of thing. So there we go. Kind of putting that in there. She's got kind of messy hair because she has sort of memory issues, and she spaces out and does kind of weird things as a character. Right? She actually kind of looks more like Ritsuko from Evangelion, in my opinion. Which, that might have been intentional 10 years ago or whatever. Yeah, she does sort of have finger in the light socket hair going for her. Mostly because she might have actually put her finger in a light socket. I don't know. She's not always all here as a character. It's part of what the charm of the character. It's part of the charm. So, the other thing that's significant about her is the crazy eyes. And that's a thing. One of her eyes is a replacement eye. And at the time, it was a battlefield replacement. So she got it in a medical hospital, and they couldn't find an eye that matched her other eye. And she feels like it adds to her personality, so she never changed it. We are going to have to change her history, though, a little bit. Because in the original history between Chang and Bennett, when it was, or Bennett and Cochrane, when it was Bennett and Cochrane, Cochrane saved Bennett's life by beaming her out of space, effectively. Right? And so that's fine, but our transporters work differently here now. So they don't work the same as they did before. And so we've got to kind of go back through and figure this out. This pencil's kind of nice. I like this pencil. It does a good job of looking like a pencil. Right? There we go. So now we're kind of looking at her and kind of getting an idea of where Bennett is on this one. We're going to do the other side here, the side view on this. There we go. She has that little cat-like thing going for her. Cat meow face or whatever. I don't know how you call it. There we go. And we're already making some mistakes. Yay! Welcome to the real world. Could be worse. Could be welcome to the jungle, right? There we go. That. Then we'll just give her her signature sort of screwed up hair, right? Goes to right about here. Now the only thing is, good morning, Paul. We're working on character design this morning. The only thing I really want to work on here is like, what holds her hair back? Does she have a hairband? Because she might need a hairband. And it definitely your favorite episode of Next Gen, huh? And she might need a hairband here. So when originally I didn't have a hairband, her hair was just this way. But she could have a hairband, which may be more than a hairband. Which is not to be confused with Van Halen, which is a hairband. I'm just saying. Right? I think it's even funnier because she's the one that you assign to a job to go shoot people. So the idea of her having some adorable hairband on this while she promptly goes and shoots people is kind of funny and very, Very anime-esque. And it needs to go out here. And Bennett can almost move over wholesale from where she was. I mean, there's really, other than we're going to have to come up with a new, I don't think I like that, a new concept for her. Right? An 80s metal hairband. It makes me wonder, do we consider baby metal to be a hairband? Because, they got hair. Hair all over the place. Makes me wonder. Little fluffy Japanese girls with lots of hair. I am, by the way, somewhat of a baby metal fan. I'm just saying. Metal Galaxy is a pretty good album. They're moving more pop in Metal Galaxy, which I kind of like. I've always been a J-pop fan. So, okay. So we're going to give her this hairband. Yeah, I don't think we wear them. That's the other thing, right? And on the hairband, I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to just give some widgets on there to... Exactly. I think the funniest thing that I ever saw was when Rob Zombie's fans decided to get on to how baby metal wasn't real metal, and Rob Zombie just chewed them up one side and down the other. I have actually seen baby metal as an act with... Was it Pantera? No, it was... Might have been Pantera. Anyway. You were in hair, Amanda? That's awesome, actually. I love that. All this time, I didn't realize you were as much of a theater geek as you are. You and I, we're going to have to talk more. And Mariah, too, because Mariah's got a theater degree. I don't know if you knew that. But she has a degree in theater. And that's sort of our, thing. That's what we do, is we go to, because we're right next to the Arvada Center. And so we like to go to the plays at the Arvada Center all the time. We're theater people. We're theater folk. We go to the plays. I would have gone and seen that. That would have been fun. I always kind of wanted to see Hair. That's one that I never got to see in person. I heard the soundtracks and, all that stuff. Yeah. Like I said, still theater people. Still theater folk. Okay, so this side is her brown-eyed side. Make sure that we got that. Paul. You're saying that as time has gone on, you've seen less and less hair? Ooh. The only time I ever got heat stroke was when I was teaching kids to teaching kids like the extended driving stuff, and we were out in a parking lot, and it was 99 degrees outside, and we were moving we had all the cars going, and they had to go through obstacle courses, and we had to do like quick reverse and stuff like that. So I was teaching all the kids how to do all of that, and I got heat stroke because it was too hot, and like 5 of the cars didn't have AC. So, that kind of stuff. It's the only time I ever got heat stroke too. I would have much rather gotten heat stroke on stage. I'm just saying. Okay. We now have a side view and a front view of this character. Right? Yeah, it was pretty brutal. I really enjoy teaching kids, and I enjoy being a teacher. I did not enjoy that part. Okay, I am looking at this now separate from my guide, and I'm noticing that her head is taller on the side view than it is here. So this is time for me to go back and fix. This is where we go back and fix. More altitude up here than the hairband. Welcome to the jungle. Okay. So there's a debate. Guns N' Roses, is that a hairband? I've had people go both sides on that one. Is GNR a headband? No, a hairband. A headband. Hairband. Because I feel like GNR is definitely a hairband. And the argument has been made that they were like the newer generation. They were a different generation of music. And so they wouldn't be looped in with what you'd get with, like, for example, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do this. This is what we're going to do. We're going to take this, and I'm just going to stretch it until it fits. Look at that. There we go. Right? I kind of feel like that too. Like, why the long face? Crane. I guess her name's Crane now. Right? Is Twisted Sister that way, or... I do think these things, I'm like, Okay, now we messed up her hair. Now we messed up her hair. You messed up her hair. Okay. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, we're going to do this. This is what we're going to do. Get rid of that. It does make you wonder, though. Twisted Sister. And I guess that goes with, what's the definition of hairband? Do we look at hairbands as pop? And if so, I can kind of see why we would construe that, these aren't the same critters. There we go. So now all I'm doing is one-to-one matching up all of the attributes of the face here so that they all line up on both sides. Right? There we go. There we go. Okay, so now I'm lining up all of the attributes left to right. Yeah. The best part about this is I got no real dog in the race. On this one, so there's no, I'm not going to get offended. I've never met anybody who really gets offended except our engineer for Geek Tank, Kevin, who is a major heavy metal fan and finds all of these things, he finds baby metal to be somewhat insulting because they're not, it's pop. And so he feels like they're pop metal and they should stay in pop metal. But they're speed metal. I mean, they're really, really fast. Oh, yeah. Dee Snider, there's a dog running for president. You know what? I'm just saying. I'm not saying, but I'm saying. You know what I mean? Yeah, I know what I mean. You and me. Dog running for president. I feel like that's politics in a nutshell right there. That is totally politics in a nutshell. All of politics. I'm getting so sick of politics. And we're in an election year, which means that I'm just going to get sicker of politics as time goes on. We're just saying. We're just saying. The only mayor I know is the mayor of Sheridan. She's pretty cool. I like her. Kind of partial to her. She's a neat person. Just saying. And actually the answer, Amanda, is I'm on episode 2 of Space Force. They're still trying to rescue the satellite. It's very funny. It's I don't know. I'm still trying to think about what I think about Space Force. There is a certain amount of dumb comedy that I don't appreciate. I like intelligent comedy, and Space Force, because it comes from The Office. The Office, I felt, was right on that borderline of where I'm like, really, and I know there are a lot of Office fans out there. And we got some great stuff. I mean, we got Star-Lord out of it, man. We got Star-Lord. But I still feel like, the train museum, So I used to take my kids driving by the train museum every day. And I kept thinking, I gotta go to the train museum. Every time I do that. It was really funny. And I mean kids as in students. Yeah, and I don't mean to knock people who like The Office. I have a very peculiar taste when it comes to comedy. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that I was raised around actors and actresses all of my life. And some of those actors and actresses were really, really good comedians. And they would keep you rolling just sitting in our living room. And it was really funny. Will Ferrell is in that. And I almost had his name. Adam Sandler. Adam Sandler. I don't get it, man. I don't get it. I know there are people who love and adore those characters or those guys, and that's awesome. That is really cool. That said, there is a different vibe with Space Force. And I'm okay with it at the moment. At the moment, I'm having fun with it. The characters are not dumb per se. They just have a hard time dealing with their archetype, you know? And so it's kind of funny. I don't know. I feel like that's a different thing. They're okay. I could see that. When he was younger, it was all penis jokes, and I'm like, well, I mean, let's be realistic here. All of us, we get into our 12-year-old mode, and penis jokes are funny, but they're only funny for so long. There's only so many poop jokes you can make before you're like, okay, well, I'm done. You know? And so I don't know. I mean, it's okay. I'm sure that he's fine. And again, I want to reiterate, I don't have any problem if other folks like Adam Sandler. It's not to say that you're not part of my team, you're not my family anymore, or anything like that. She has maybe too long of a neck. There we go. I still call you family, even if you're a fan of Adam Sandler. It's all good. There we go. Not quite so ridiculous. So, that's okay. It's all right. Moving right along here. Oh, God. I feel like she had softer eyes in the blue line. Let's take a look here. Right? Because I'm looking at this blue line here. I think she had much softer eyes in the blue line. I mean, there's nothing we're going to be able to do. She's got one blue eye and one brown eye. It's going to be... Yeah, I actually am finding the Steve and John dynamic to be entertaining and fascinating, but also prescient. There's a lot of the scientist versus the military thing, which has been an argument for bazillions of years. Yeah, I think that's it. Even as a kid, I wasn't. In fact, I am finding farting and penis jokes to be funnier now as an older guy, you know. And I'm getting into my and mostly because they're funny with my kid. You know what I mean? It's all good. You know, I have Amanda's talking about having way too many things plugged into USB ports. I have the exact same problem. So much so that yesterday my tablet just turned off in the middle of the show. It was like, well, that's it. And it just stopped working. And we're like, really? 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 So, I want her eyes to be rounded more or more like this. And I like this peak on the inside of the eye instead of the outside of the eye. Yeah, and it's hysterical when you're dealing with your 10-year-old, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that as you deal with your 10-year-old. But there's only so much of that humor I can take on my TV screen before I'm like, not as funny anymore. Okay, let's talk about some of the other things. Yeah, I do kind of feel like I liked the blue line better than I liked the pencil. Yeah. Wondering whether I should just suck it up and drive on. Suck it up, Buttercup. Really like the side view a whole lot. A whole lot more than I like the... Yeah, kids. You gotta love kids. Or you don't gotta love kids. That's okay too. Okay, let's talk a little bit about putting her in action. Right? Let's put her in action here. What are the things that she would do if you were to put her in action? Action line across here, like this. Maybe we'll make her terrified, or not terrified, but making some kind of nothing wrong with zombies and vampires. Well, I mean, unless you can't actually stab them, at which time it's a mistake. Okay. Hey, Paul, this is my first officer for Bellatrix Rising, my comic that I'm working on. She's my first officer. She's also the chief of security on the ship. Which means that it's probably a viable thing to give her a weapon. Give her a service weapon. So, yeah. So we're doing character designs for the last of the characters who are. Let's go ahead and set this up like that. Go ahead. She's full of snark. Everything she says is snarky. In fact, when I write this particular character, I prep myself by going and watching Firefly first, just to make sure that I have the right feel of snark, a snark level of a high caliber of snark. But everything she does is snarky. And I love this character's voice in my head. This character is so snarky. And she's got like some serious chatter. And she does. I mean, she's the one that says things like, it really is. She's the one that will say things like, what was it? She also has like a dry humor. Like and it's actually kind of sad. The captain gets in trouble, and she rescues the captain by running a shuttlecraft through a wall and shooting everybody with, yeah, that's true. Putting the train job first was a bad idea. If you'd put out of gas first, we would have all been enamored. Usually whenever I show people Firefly, I go with out of gas. That's the first one I show them. Anyway, she runs the shuttlecraft through the wall, and Cochrane says, "Wow, you really know how to make an entrance." And she turns and looks at the shuttlecraft and looks back and goes, "Yeah, but nobody can use it until I can get the shuttlecraft out of it." She's that kind of snark. I mean, just high level. Just really, really, really snarky. So, a good snark picture here where she's like, "Yeah, but..." Yeah. Well, that's what she says. "Yeah, but nobody can use it until I get the shuttlecraft out of it." Yeah, there you go. Lots of snark. This character has a ton of snark. Between her and the captain, the dynamics are kind of wild. Sadly, on the sad side, Angie is an enabler. Because Chang needs to move on. And she can't. Chang is stuck mourning her daughter, and has been for years. And her daughter has been gone for a long time, and her husband's gone. And they've both been, and really, Chang needs to move on and can't. She's very stuck. And Angie enables that. Angie lets that go longer than Angie needs to. It's part of the mix that's coming in with Mayrel. Because Mayrel, being a straight man, is going to really shake up this mix. There's going to be a lot of shake-up going on. Because Mayrel, not only is she a straight man, but she's Deus Thati, which is a culture of being very straightforward and not dodging things. So she's going to start pounding on Chang's inability to move on, and it's not going to make Chang comfortable. And there will be confrontation somewhere along the line between those two characters. They're really going to have a tough time with one another. And Angie is going to have to figure out where she lies in this. Where does Angie fall in this fight? On the one hand, Angie knows instinctually that this needs to happen. That Chang needs to move on, and that Chang is stuck, and stuff like that. And we know that. And Angie knows that. Well, it's hard for the studio to can my comic book, so there's that. Dare the studio to can my comic book. It'll still be there. Dollhouse was awesome. It could be done. You know, I was watching Atlantis the other day, the Disney movie Atlantis, and I was truly entertained by the fact that there was that you look and it was Joss Whedon who was the script doctor on Atlantis. And if you watch, you know, this is the Disney movie Atlantis, The Lost Empire. If you watch it, you can hear Whedon in there. Hey, we got 100 messages today on the Restream. Yeah. So, Brett, we still have not talked about what do the weapons in Bellatrix Rising do. You know, I am suddenly all enamored with the idea of this, like, double-barreled square thing. I don't know what it does. I don't know why it's double-barreled and square. But it's double-barreled and square. And I think that looks cool. And I'm just saying. So I might have to figure out what that means. Why? Why are we at double-barreled and square? But that's okay. Maybe that's what she's saying here. That's what she said. Is this thing's got 2 barrels and I don't know what to do with it. Yeah, that's what she's saying right here. Except that's not really what Bennett says. She says, this thing's got 2 barrels and I can use both of them on you. That means double the shooty. And that's more like what she would say. She's that way. There we go. I don't know. We'll have to figure somewhere along the line. We're going to have a little show here where we talk about the weaponry of this comic, and I think that you might have some input on that. Hey, I don't like weaponry that doesn't work. You know, like, for example, I absolutely adore Space 1999's gun, but it doesn't make any sense, right? The gun's illogical, and I don't know how. But as a gosh, what was I? I was 8, as an 8-year-old, 7-year-old. Man, that was the coolest gun ever. For those of you who do not know what I'm talking about, which probably is most of you guys, the gun from Space 1999 was like this. Right? And it was way cool, but weirdly impractical. Right? So it's like, I mean, I guess it was a laser gun, so it didn't really have recoil. I guess if you don't have recoil, you could pretty much put the laser emitter wherever the heck you want. Right? I mean, you don't have to put the laser emitter. One could argue that you could put the laser emitter, like, you know, there if you really wanted to. It's a laser. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have to be lined up, although that is remarkably impractical. I do very badly want to have a stun setting of some sort, because that was an attribute of her that was very important. You know, she was notorious for just stunning everybody, right? They're holding a hostage. She comes in and just stuns the whole room. Everybody falls down. The hostage hates her for it, but everybody's alive and nobody shot anything. So she would fire. I mean, that was one of her normal how to deal with hostage situations, was just to roll a stun grenade into the room, you know, and stunned everybody. Everybody fell over, and then she sorted out who was armed and who wasn't. And it was very straightforward for her. And make her hair go floofy more. I want it to go floof. Right? I mean, this is one of the things that I feel like is not explored by Star Trek. You know, I do too. I do like that. I don't know, maybe that's an aspect of the gun, right? It's got a barrel and then maybe like a second barrel underneath it, like this. And you grab here, pull forward, and then rotate. And that locks the other barrel into the weapon, pointed backwards. And you can show that you're at non-lethal or lethal, right? And that might actually not be, and you know, this could be a point of show. Like, there's a reason why we do this. You can tell that you're being pointed at by a non-lethal weapon. That, you know, if you're almost like painting the nose of the gun orange, you know, it's non-lethal. And so maybe something like this. Although, gosh, put a trigger guard right there, and you got the lethal side pointed right at your finger. Yes. Although, there are two weapons that I'm thinking of. First of all, the slide of a normal pistol, right? That's a pull back. So this would be pull forward. Yeah, that doesn't feel right. I see what you're saying. Here, me. This is a good time to talk about these things. If you've got like the slide of a pistol, right? You pull it back. But this is a pull motion or a push motion with your fist. So I was thinking more along the lines of you'd pull forward to snap it loose and then flip it around, then snap it back in, right? But the idea is to not make it a, hey, I'm in here with non-lethal force, pew, 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 clack, pew, pew, pew. Oh, I'm sorry, it snapped over to lethal force while I wasn't looking. You know, you kind of want it to be a deliberate snap forward, rotate it around, snap it back in. You're right, pullback is a natural. And so, I mean, like, I'm actually kind of thinking intentionally making it an unnatural motion so you don't do it fast. It's something to think about. It's kind of a ponderable. One of the things that I'm wondering about, looking at the design of the various weapons in Star Trek. Let's take a look at some of this stuff. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about weapons, shall we? We can talk about, like, the dolphin, right? The dolphin, except this is the cobra. The cobra, I mean, this is a very, like, unnatural holding position, too, and especially with a thumb trigger, you know? I'm not disagreeing with you. I mean, I don't want you to feel like, you know, we can't discuss this. I was just kind of thinking that through. I'm okay with the idea and the concept that, but I mean, this guy here, he's got no trigger down here. It's a deliberate motion to the thumb to push to make the weapon fire. When you look at Discovery's pistol is a much different, like, critter. One of the things, though, that I think Discovery's pistol should have is, I know the Cobra's great, is I feel like it should snap forward, turn, and snap back for the different, you know, because that's what the cage phaser did. And that's the other thing that I was thinking about here was when I think about these weapons, I think about the cage phaser, right? Cage phaser had that forward piece that snapped it forward and snapped it back. Oh, yeah. But that cage phaser, you know, snap, turn, snap sort of thing to change the beam emitters in the front. And I know that that's where they were headed, looking at the 3 beam emitters that we've got going on here. So, of course, the cage phaser has got all the different critters in it, not the least of which is the removable phaser 1. And once you start talking about phaser 1s, what's this phaser 1 being? Great. Why is this phaser 1 not triggering out? There we go. Talk about the phaser 1. The phaser 1 is even more of a... it's even... We're back to this motion. Yeah. And then putting that back in the... Putting it back in here is kind of difficult. What I don't have in here, interestingly, is my assault phaser. I don't know where that went. I think it's still downstairs. Oh, you're welcome. I just recently found out that this guy is actually rather expensive. It's a rarer tricorder. The medical tricorder is a much rarer tricorder, especially with its reader. But apparently this is a very rare thing. I didn't know that. I mean, this guy right here, and he's more common. Everybody's got kind of one of these guys. But the medical one is a little different. Of course you do, man. And this is why we're buddies. Right. So you mean more like the revolver, which snaps forward, so you have to throw the barrel or something like that and then snap it back. That makes sense. I mean, I don't mind the idea. You look at kind of the ones that were done in... I don't actually have one yet, but I will, because I collect weird, goofy things. So, yeah, actually, all of my toys are still somewhat functional. I've got, it's important. You can push the emergency button there. And then it just sits there. So, anyway, I love my collection. Sometime I'm going to put up a thing over here for displaying all of my various stuff. We can geek out about that. So, I'm not necessarily against the idea of the rotating barrels like it is. Oh, I love those. There's a mirror trick. So they all just... I don't necessarily have a problem with the idea of rotating barrels. I'm just trying to figure out... I mean, because I do want sort of a deliberate... it's kind of fun, isn't it? I do want a deliberate motion, not just for the logic of the whole thing, but also for drama, right? I mean, you've got your characters, and they're like, pew, 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 and they're sitting up against the wall, and then it's like, okay, well, we've got to, the stun thing's not working. We're going to have to do something else. And the other character's like, clack, 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 clack. Fine. You know what I mean? There's more drama to that. If you've got to do some kind of, check, check. There's a reason why they keep ejecting bullets on TV, right? We all know that you don't just sit there with a pistol and go, check, check. Check, 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 check. You just be ejecting shells all over the place. Perfectly good bullets lying all over the ground. Or with your shotgun, clack, clack. But it does make for a dramatic point. And so if we can design a weapon which has that built in with that drama that makes logical sense, then people who actually know anything about weapons won't sit there and go, did they just eject like 16 shells under the ground? Like unused bullets. What are you guys doing? What are you guys doing? But you can't just go, well, we're going to go in. You want something. You want somebody to go, oh, well, I'm ready. Clack, clack, I'm ready. It makes for a more dramatic thing. So I'm trying to figure out how to make this work with a weapon that's logical. We're always on stun. The weapons are always on stun. They will always stun you. And, oh, well, now we're serious. So clack, clack. Now we're serious. This guy's going to die. He's going down. So I'm kind of that opinion. And I agree with you. That's what makes somebody was smart on the new Star Treks, because you're right. That's exactly what they designed it for. Pew, 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 pew. Well, that's it. I've had it with you. Whap. Pew, 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 pew. You can totally, we get a close-up of the gun. You see little barrels rotate. All of that works. So I totally agree. That makes total sense. But of course, I can't copy that. So everybody would be like, you just copied Star Trek. Well, yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm. Exactly. So since we're here and since we're up and close, Brent, let's just discuss this weapon, shall we? what I will do is let's start a new page, though, for it. Let's not use up our page for Yep, doing business. Business helps. Business always helps for actors. Giving business to the actors is a great thing, but it also works in comic books, right? I mean, you have your character, he's up against the wall, and he's looking back over here, and he's got the gun right here, you know, and he's doing the gun thing, and he goes, chack, chack, right? You know, stuff's about to go down, right? Right? You have this guy here. Oh no, we're gonna get shot. Maybe we're gonna get shot, and we're not gonna get shot. Yeah. And bullets going whew, 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 whew. Yeah, that's why I'm actually on a different page over here. Is let's not take away from character design. And don't worry about it, Brent. This is something that's got to be done too. I think I'm pretty happy with her here. I mean, I'm liking this. I think her face is a little thin here, but other than that, I'm feeling like we're good. I mean, this definitely is her snarking while doing something, but this has logically led us to weapon design, and I like weapon design, and I like logic design. I mean, we're going to have to think about all the things. This is sort of a Star Trek knockoff. What if they spun like you were talking about? So, like, you have an upper barrel like this, and then the lower barrel like this, and they rotated around a core. And this barrel is non-lethal up here, and this barrel is lethal. And what essentially happens is this connects to your power source back here. So you spin it, and the lethal one's on the top. Right? It's all right. Revolvers are cool. There's nothing wrong with a revolver. It works just fine. But then this way, from the side view, you have like a long, I actually kind of like asymmetrical things. So got like a long, this rotating piece here, which then connects it to the rest of the weapon. Like that. See? You and I are thinking the same here. You got like the short barrel is for your non-lethal stun setting, and the long barrel is for the lethal setting. Also, this way you can't say, I didn't know my weapon was unlethal. Right? So, I also feel like this might be You know what? Let's also talk about this. What if it could extend? Right? Like this. Because you think about this logically. The extension on it would then be power level, right? And here's what I'm talking about. You've got kind of the revolver piece here, like this. And your stunner is underneath. So when it's in this mode, it extends out. And that gives it more power. That's what I was saying, is like it's still part of the grip here. Right? But this gives it more power. Well, and that's my thought, right? This is the further out it goes, the more power it has. At this extension, when it's fully retracted, this will kill a human being, but won't pierce a ship hull, right? Then when you extend it all the way out, that burns through the entire power source pretty much in 2 or 3 shots or whatever. You're right. We're going to have to think about it. It burns through the entire power source in 2 or 3 shots. But it also will cut through a hull. So this is my thought process. What are we thinking here? We like the concept and the design here. I'll have to space AG up the grip though. It's gonna be something more like this in design. And yeah, it's gonna have to have some kind of battery unit that goes in here. But I also like, okay, geek time. Time for us to geek. It is time for us to geek out. In the Evangelion show, I figure that the guns will automatically have touchpads that read DNA. I mean, we've almost got that technology now. 500 years from now, that's got to be like absolutely straight up. You know, everything will be that way. But let's talk about Evangelion. There is a wonderful scene in, I want to say it's episode 4, 5, somewhere in there, really early on, where Asuka takes Eva 2 out and then gears it up with a huge gun. And the gun is massive. And it needs to be wired to the city's power grid. It's so massive, right? And so, you know, she fires the gun and then pulls back the chamber, and the huge canister goes ka-chung, and it's just smoldering, smoke everywhere. So much power went through that gun that, you know, when she had to fire again, that she pulls back on the chamber, and the round comes out, and it's this massive canister, you know, the size of a bus. It goes kaboom, and it's smoldering and smoking, and it lands on the ground. You go, there's smoke everywhere, and it's just a horrible thing. So I kind of thought, you know, this gun would have the same thing. You know, if it's on non-lethal, you've got like 5,000 shots on the battery. You turn it to lethal, and you've got 10. You extend that barrel all the way out, and you have 1, and when you fire, that battery comes out of the bottom smoldering. I mean, it's just smoking, because that is serious. You've used up that entire battery unit. But it's also super dramatic. And it would make for a very entertaining... so it rotates. It'll spin across the barrel. It'll rotate this way. So you've got the top barrel and the bottom barrel, and you can go clack like this and switch it over. So it'll rotate this way across a pivot point right above the trigger. Right above the trigger guard. So you just clack, and then you can extend out that upper barrel as you need it. Wherever you want to go. Right. Originally, I liked the idea of pulling it out, but I think Brent's absolutely right. This is not a comfortable maneuver. Clack. That's not as easy. So rotating it like a revolver, check, and switching it over, that works. I could see that. And all you're really doing when you do that is you're connecting the gunny part, the barrel, with the battery part, which is in the bottom of the grip, right? So when you switch it over, it switches this top part, which is connected to the battery, it's down at the bottom, which doesn't connect to the battery, and now you have the bottom part, which was not connected, now connected, so it just rotates over, and that connects the battery to the, I guess it's probably not a battery. It's probably something, power source, a power cell of some sort. But then that would be, I can now imagine in a firefight with Bennett, and she just has a bunch of those batteries on her, and she's like, bam, bam, clack, 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 bam, bam, and she's just like really going and shooty thingies, and she's just got, the batteries just keep dropping out, and she slaps a new one in, and, just bam, 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 clack, clack, and that's dramatic. And that would certainly be more of what I would construe as, it's Bespin gas. You need more chest pain gas. But that, what do we think about that? Does that sound like a reasonable, dramatic? I mean, that fits the idea of a unique weapon that I've never seen before. It seems logical. We'll actually extend this guy out over here so he's even further out because we want him to be further out like this. And it's got a certain amount of drama to it. Right? What do we think? Those experts, those folks who are experts on firearms, what are we thinking? You think that's a reasonable idea? Okay, good. And it gives you the revolver concept. It gives that revolver concept you were talking about, which I agree with you. Revolvers do have a certain amount of drama to them. I feel like this guy's round and friendly, and this guy's, no, you don't want to mess with this, sort of. It's like, this is not the barrel you want to be looking at. And this guy has that extra pull. So it ups the power level through here. And I might pull these a little closer together, rather than having an obvious open gap there. Because this becomes a structural weak point through here. Let's talk a little bit about pulling these guys a little closer together. Help me get there. Right. And the double barrel design's kind of cool. And we can't afford to do that. It's got to be in line with the power source. What we can do is was looking at this design a little more. There. Yeah, like right here. Put a little laser. Fires a little laser out. I see what you're talking about. Yeah, that's not bad. I like that too. Why didn't it add a laser target right in here for this guy? Right? And in fact, I think that would be what would be interesting. Is on both sides of both of these guys would be the button to activate the laser. You know, turn it on and turn it off. And the reason I say that is because if you're doing proper like the laser sight. If you're doing proper trigger discipline, then your finger should be to the side of the trigger, right? So you can, as you're holding it, you can just tap that button right there on the side, and it just taps and turns on the laser sight. Oh, yeah. And I do like Discovery's concept here, that they have this. And that's a logical thing, too. Because then you don't have to do anything. It's the charge is going to tell you what its status is. So our power source will tell you what its status is. Yeah. So the idea is that, we've got kind of the wrong way going on here. But the idea is this is your laser sight trigger right here. Thus, you don't have an accidental and the rifles should very much use the same clips, would be my thought. These charge clips, but I would say that they can load like 3 or 4 into it, so that you've got the ability to use it longer, use it for more. I don't know, would rifles even have, I guess rifles would have a stun setting, because you'd want to be able to project longer. But let's think about this, because I've been thinking about this a lot on the concept. We're talking about the future. Rifles, the advantage of rifles is that it gives more travel time for the bullet to keep straight, right? That's the whole point. So if you've got a rifle, what benefit does a laser have with a rifle? Right? I mean, what's the benefit on that? The only thing I can think of is scope, right? The ability to see further. At which time, I don't know why we wouldn't just mount a scope on like a hot shoe right up here. Right? So let's think that through on the logic. More power. Yeah. More accuracy over longer distances. But I think with a laser, the only thing I can think of is better focus. Yeah, the only thing I can think of is that it would be stable. Sorry. So the reason I'm saying that is, rather than give us a different weapon, what if we had a rifle extension for stability? For example, we take this guy right here. Let's go get him straightened out. We have this guy right here. We'll copy and paste him. Put him over here. Okay. And suppose we took this guy, and instead of giving him, and this is on a different layer, so instead of giving him a different weapon, suppose we put a stock on him for shoulder mount and an extender on the front like this, which extends, and then a scope. Right? Because the more, and I'm just thinking this one through. But if we put a shoulder stock and just snapped it on the back here, put a scope on the top, and an extender on the front. Yeah, that's my thought, is that then you've got, and this could actually just slide right into this piece right here. And this would give you, oh, that's cool. You do you, man. You do what you need to do. But this is my thought, is rather than give us two weapons, and this maybe would be curved over like this, so that it's still rounded all the way up to the front here. And then that way, you can still rotate these barrels if you need to. Long distance stun, right? Sniper stun. It's not to say that won't happen. But the more I think about it, the more I think that would be the rifle. Right? You've got a sniper stun. I can snipe you with my stun gun. But honestly, I think that 99% of the police actions that they will do would be with stun. The more I think about this. It's been a fascinating discussion today, ladies and gentlemen. You guys have been really interesting. And given me a lot to really work with here. You are. But you'd be carrying extra parts anyway, right? If you had a rifle, carrying a rifle. And the reason I'm thinking about this is I'm thinking we get back to the original discussion. Yeah, that's true. It could be part of just what you're carrying. If we talk about this guy here, right? I mean, this guy, obviously, this is already part of what they've been doing with Star Trek for a long time, is the idea of just snapping pieces together so that they're all one unit, right? I mean, that's the concept that they've been working with this entire time. So the more I think about it, the more I think that they were kind of already on the concept of just modular design, even in yeah, me too. Yeah, me too. I really want to 3D print this. I'll model it and then we'll print it. And then the next time we're together, you can play with it. Because I gotta admit, any weapon that has sort of that modular feel, it's got a lot of business, right? I also feel like it needs the Discovery rifle or the Discovery pistol. I do too. I love this thing. This thing, that was one thing I loved to see about Discovery, was that this looks like and acts like the original series phaser. You're right, I could just send you the STL. But this looks like and feels like, but it's heftier. It's got a bigger stock, or a bigger grip. It's got a safety back here, which I find fascinating. And it's got a trigger safety, which I think is interesting. And of course, it's got the light that switches from blue to red. And yes, it's all business. I love this thing. This thing, it's got a rotating bar on the front here, although this is a 3D print. I want to go through and fix this. This slides forward, turns, and rotates back like they had on the cage. I assume this is supposed to be the middle weapon between the cage phaser and our Type 1 phasers, right? That we got in the original series. But yeah, and then it's got like the bar graph here to show you what the power level on there. And it's got, safeties and triggers, and it feels like a real weapon. I mean, not like the phaser hasn't always felt perfectly comfortable in my hand as a long-standing Trekkie. So, we've got about 5 minutes left. I'm thinking, Brent and Amanda and Paul, I really appreciate all you guys being here and helping me think this through. And I agree with you, Brent. I will figure this all out, and then we will print the heck out of this thing. But I also feel like there should be a lever up here, and I was just going to talk about this. A lever right here of some sort that presses this in. This way and this way. Yeah, right? But this lever specifically presses the channel, the power channel, into this section, connects it in. And that will keep us from just having a spinning, otherwise that chamber is just going to swing and spin around, right? It's not going to, it won't set in right. So, lightsaber is cool too. It's a civilized weapon from a more civilized era. But that's what I think is going to happen here, is we're going to have a lever which will be on this side. So you clack the lever, spin the chamber, clack the lever in to lock it in place, and that'll help. Man, if you look at the parts of this, though, we're going to have the underbarrel here, this piece, which has the rotation part that goes through the center there, and then the stunner barrel, like this, and this gun barrel has this groove on the side because this part, which is much longer, is going to have to run with that groove. And this groove will have to have like clicky spots so that you can feel it and go clack, 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 clack. You know, it'll make it feel good on that one. And I want this to go the same direction. Then there'll be the little stunner dome, right? And then here will be the connector. Then you have the trigger guard, which will have this piece here. So this goes here, this goes there. Trigger guard, which then has an open piece right here, and then an attachment piece back here, and goes sideways like this, because that looks cool. And this will attach back to the rifle extension here. And this has an open door right here, which then has the power connector, which this goes in here and comes out that side. And this power connector pod connects inside both of these somehow, or not somehow, but that way. Wow, this is complicated. Then on the bottom piece here, I'll make it look and be more comfortable. Then you have, of course, the power cell itself, which will be a different piece. You know what? I wonder if this guy could release that guy. So pulling this back would release the power cell as well. And that's, so it would, you'd pull that back, the power cell could come out, and you could release the power cell. Now, I feel like maybe we should have two different levers for that. Maybe it's not a good idea for your barrels to go free all of a sudden. That might not be good. So, but it is dramatic. We've got the drama on that, don't we? I mean, if you think about that one. Oh, this has been a fun show, guys. Thank you for joining me. This has been so much fun. And I've really rather enjoyed this. I've enjoyed hanging out with you guys this entire show. And it's just been, it's been good. It's been a good show. It's a good show. We talked about stuff and we logicked things out. And now I have to build this in a 3D model so that we can all have 3D models of it. We can print them all out and then we can go clacking all the time. Clack, 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 clack. That's important. You gotta be able to go clack, 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 and clack. Weapons are not any fun if they don't clack a lot. They're not dramatic. But at least there's a logic to this weapon now that doesn't involve just clack, clack. I'm ready for battle now. Oh, hang on real quick while I pick up that round that I just ejected. Yes. Right? Clacking. You're right. We'll have to have some other button to eject the clip. But there's a lot of clacking involved, and that's important. I gotta admit though, that the power barrel on the top where it just tick, 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 tick. I mean, that's just another one of those. You're getting serious, aren't you? Tick. How serious are you? Tick, tick, tick. The idea that it's like, at some point in time, you're ready to blow holes in the side of a ship. It goes from disintegrating a human being, or maybe even setting 1 is like disintegrating a cockroach, and then setting 9 is like blowing a hole in the side of the ship. But I do feel like variable power settings is critical on spacecraft lasers. That's a motorcycle. Well, okay, guys. Well, it has been, as always, a lot of fun. This has been a great show today. And I hope to see you again. I'll be here tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel. Tomorrow, I don't actually think that anybody can make the artist check-ins anymore. I think Raf's working all day and Pepper's working all day. So it's just going to be me doing artist check-ins for a while until we figure out what else to do. So, but either way, I'll be back tomorrow at 10 a.m. We may be working on this, or we may be working on client work. I haven't decided. Or it might be Animation Friday. Animation Friday was fascinating, but I think you guys were bored sick. So we'll have to come up with a better Animation Friday thing. I did figure out Character Animator. So we might spend a little bit of quality time with Character Animator tomorrow. Amanda, if you want to join me tomorrow at 10, that's the one where you're going to be fascinated. It is way too much fun for its own good. Character Animator is a riot. As an old animation guy, I have been having... My kid and I both have way too much fun with Character Animator. Anyway, it was wonderful having you guys here with me today. I hope to see you all again soon. And I will see many of you later. And thank you so much for your input on all this. This is a much more logical weapon than I had to begin with. Free Friday! Friday is free. You don't have to pay for it. This show you have to pay for. Tomorrow you don't have to. I'm just kidding. You don't have to pay at all. I'm free all the time. Anyway, it was wonderful having you all here. I'll see you all later. Bye-bye.